Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sri Ram Kumar here. A warm evening to you all. Today we are on the 65th show of TLR Shows. TLR Shows is an initiative launched by TLRNOW. And before I get on to the show, let me talk a bit about TLRNOW. TLRNOW is a niche coaching, training, and mentoring firm. We are headquartered out of Pune, and we have a very simple purpose, that is enabling transformation in individuals. Our clients find this extremely powerful, extremely simple, and extremely cohesive, and they absolutely love the work that we do. As part of our overall transformation initiative, we have launched this series called TLR Shows, which brings to the fore leaders who have been able to bring forth a change, not just within themselves, but with the ecosystem around them. And we have had 64 such leaders grace this show till date. Today, as we enter our 65th episode, it gives me absolute joy to welcome our guest for today. What do I talk about Richard Rekhy, our guest today? Do I share the fact that he is a veteran in the consulting space, somebody who has 38 years plus of experience in the consulting space? Or do I introduce him as a consultant who has worked with the biggest firms, the biggest names that are there? He was the CEO of KPMG India, and currently he is the non-executive board member of KPMG Dubai. Arthur Andersen, he's had a stint with them. Ernst Young, he's had a stint with them, and very successful stints at that. Or do I keep all these aside and talk to you about that wonderful person who, despite the heights that he has achieved, is so approachable, is so eager to share, and is so friendly by nature? Now, there are these various dimensions of Richard, and over the next 55 minutes, I would leave it to you to figure out who Richard is. With that, let me welcome Richard Rekhy to our show. Richard, thank you so much for taking time out from your schedule and gracing this show. Thank you so much.
Shriram, good evening and thank you very much. And good evening to the audience, those who are listening. I mean, it's truly a privilege and a pleasure to be on your show. Obviously, I didn't meet you. I met you just before this a few days back. And I thought I knew you for ages. And I think you have the ability to bring out, to cut the cord and actually make it much easier for people. And it's going to be a good conversation. And I just look forward to having this conversation with you. And from the audience, whatever questions they have, to whatever extent I can answer it, you will get an answer from me.
Absolutely. I would request the audience to post their questions. Richard would be happy to take them on, and he would be able to, I'm sure, answer them and share his perspective. And as I had mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, in my LinkedIn post, I am ready with my diary and pen. There's going to be a lot of learnings coming in. As you can see, here is my pen, and there's going to be a lot of learnings coming in. I'm going to be furiously scribbling down what all Richard is going to be talking about. And hopefully a post based on that on LinkedIn is something that you will see in a few days from now from my end. With that, Richard, I would want to, as they say, the proverbial kick-starting the proceedings. Why don't we step back in time and talk to us a bit about your childhood? How was it? And what were those experiences in your childhood which helped you shape and had an impact on you, and that helped you, kind of reach where you are today?
Yeah. I think I had a very normal childhood, like most kids have. I was very fortunate to have a good set of parents who were very high on their values. All the values that I profess, or that I practice, or that I live, I learned from my parents, and more so my mother, because she had a big influence on my life. In fact, both of them are not there. And even though at such a late stage of my life I lost my mother, I felt orphaned. Even at this age, I felt really orphaned when she left. Uh, because she was always there for us. What I learned, see, the biggest, I would, whether it happened accidentally or it happened because I was born in a place called Amritsar, which is a very small town in Punjab, and there were no great schools, so I had to be sent to boarding. So I, at a very young age, when you're hardly in class 3 or 4, you're sent out to a boarding school. I went to St. Joseph's College, Nainital, and I did a stint out there. And then I think my mother felt sorry for me. She, after a few years, she brought me back, and we were in a place called Kanpur. And then we moved from Kanpur, and then we moved to Calcutta, and that's where I joined La Martiniere for boys. And so I finished my schooling at La Martiniere, but as things would have it, my father, the group he was working with, shifted him to Mumbai, Bombay in those days, and so I was again in boarding. So I had a pretty decent stint in boarding, and I think I learned a lot in boarding. You learned independence, you learned how to do everything yourself. I was fortunate that my parents were doing well, so I didn't struggle for anything in life. But a small thing I'll just give you. I remember one day we came back from school. We were two brothers, one sister, and my brother asked the servant to get him water, and my mother said, "You have legs, go and get the water yourself." And they will get the water for you. So these few incidents, or when we would go out, share it with the driver, give him also an ice cream if we are having an ice. These are small incidents, but it taught you that everybody is valued. Doesn't matter which state of society comes from, state of society comes from. You need to value them. And I still remember one of the words that my mother told me. She said that whatever you do under the cover of darkness, this was when I grew up a little more, saying, never be ashamed of it if that cover is removed.
Wow.
And these kind of things stayed with me for life. And the other one which I learned very early was from my grandfather, who was a lawyer. That is my father's father. I used to keep arguing all these politicians are corrupt when I was young, and he used to tell me, let's see the day when you are tested, whether you will pass that test. And I remember those words whenever I'm at those crossroads of my life. Those words ring to me and says, no, I have to pass this test. I cannot fail it. And these are a few incidents which actually helped shape my life to a great extent. Number of interactions when I was young, the way we were brought up, the way we were disciplined. Discipline comes in boarding, even for ourselves. Get up at some time, do your own stuff. Don't, you may have all the servants in the world, but you're going to do it yourself. And I think those stayed with me for a long time. And of course, the values one was brought up of honesty and hard work, and never waste food. Mother used to frighten us by saying that if you waste food, you will actually want food later in life, and nobody will be there to feed you. So never ever waste food. So we were told, take in your plate what you can eat. You can go and take it later, but do not ever waste food. So these things remained, forever, and of course. Thinking the humility part of it, which you did speak about a little, I think that's what I got from them. That there is nothing to be proud about. You are who you are, and that's what you are. And let people talk who you are. You don't need to say who, and it doesn't make a difference. And I've lived this life. I mean, I have. I don't talk about many things, but I live my values the way I live them actually. All what I was taught from my parents. So that was my first grounding. That's where you learn a lot actually at home.
Wonderful, wonderful, Richard. I think those are really, I mean, I can imagine these are really powerful values to live by. And when they come from your parents and they are inculcated at a very young age, uh, there is no way they're not going to stay with you.
Sure.
The impact is going to be so profound.
Yeah.
So, as you grew up in this environment, Richard, uh, one is the set of values that you were surrounded by. The fact that you were in boarding, you saw different cities, cultures, etc. Did all this help shape up how you wanted to see your life play out, or was there still the typical lack of clarity? Did you struggle with that? Should I get into this stream or that stream? So did you go through that? How did you cope up with all that? I mean, sure, a lot of young viewers, I'm sure, will be listening in. So how does one take these values that your ecosystem provides you, and how do you shape it into something concrete? That's something we
So
would love to hear
yeah.
from.
So possibly I am the first chartered accountant from my family.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so it came as a shock to them as to why I wanted to do chartered accountancy, because I don't think they understood it or understood the value of it. Because my father was an engineer, then he had the fortune of going to US and studying there and then coming back. So I was one day sitting in school. I was in class 11, and my principal walked by. And at that time, as like any other youngster, I was confused. What will I do after school? Or go to college, and then what do you do? Where do you go? And I was wanting to join the merchant navy only for one reason, that I will travel the world, because I had this great fascination of seeing the world. This was a big dream for me to go and see the world. And I said,
Okay.
merchant navy will provide me that big opportunity to go and see the world. So, and this principal came across to me and asked me, what do you want to do? So I said, I want to join the merchant navy. He said, have you thought of becoming a chartered accountant? I didn't know what a chartered accountant was at that time. We were not as informed as the youngsters these days. I mean, today a 5-year-old guy will know what a chartered accountant is, but even when we were in class 11, we didn't know it. So I tried to find out from people what is this, and then I just went and told my parents I want to become a chartered accountant. And so I did my BCom, and then I went on to do my CA. So I would say I'm accidental in whatever I did. Nothing happened by design. It just happened. I was there and it happened. My first job, it just happened because I was struggling to get a job, and then somebody told me, "You go to this firm, you'll get a job," and that was Ratan S Mama and Company. That's where I started. And my 13 years out there were 13 golden years of my life where I learned a lot. But that was also accidental. I just walked into that office and said, I'm looking for a job. And I got the job, and I never looked back. So I can tell you one thing, my father was not very happy because I was not earning good money, and he wanted me to join the corporate world. He wanted me to go. He said, "See how I've done in life," because he was also a CEO, by the way. And he said, "See, we get car, we get house. You're struggling. They're not paying you. You come back so late in the night." But I just, and honestly, at some point of time, that was playing in my mind. Should I leave them, or what will I do? And then, but I just loved the work, what I was doing, and that passion, that love, just overtook everything else. And I stayed on, and I stayed on for 13 years. And like I said, it was the 13 glorious golden years of my life. It was the happiest years of my life, actually, because I learned, I grew, I failed, I toppled, I did everything possible, but I became who I eventually was to become. I mean, that's where the grounding was. I mean, that's where I got my grounding. When I look back, you see, unfortunately, when we are in a job or when we are working somewhere, we are unable to connect the dots. You connect the dots much later in life. And that's what happened with me. All the learnings I got there, I didn't think it was very big. But when I looked at it, the one thing I learned, Shriram, was that we are problem solvers from Mr. Mama. We are out here to solve a problem. And if each of us look at our own jobs, whatever job we may have, you're actually solving a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do it with a positive mindset, the impact is powerful. And that's what I learned, and many other things I learned from him. But this was like a game changer for me. It was, you're a problem solver, always be positive, find solutions. World pays for giving solutions. The world pays you for giving solutions, and there's a premium for it. And I'll tell you, I've later on, when I was in Arthur Andersen, I got success fees for giving solutions to clients. Very simple. I thought it was a very simple solution. Why is the guy paying me for it? But he said nobody gave it to me, and you have come and given, and I've saved so much money, or I've earned so much money out of your one suggestion. And many times I gave. So I was never transactional, Shriram. I'll give one small example.
Sure.
We were doing a due diligence for a client. It's an advertising company. And we were big in ad companies. Arthur Andersen was like the number one firm in advertisement companies. And these were the global ad companies. So they were doing a lot of acquisitions in India and did a due diligence. And this client called me up and he asked me, just at that time, he said, I need some tax advice on this. In Ratan Mama, you give tax advice, you give audit advice, you give consulting advice, everything you gave. But when you came into Andersen, there was audit, tax, advice, they all were separate, so it was compartmentalized. So I went to my boss and I said, this client is called up. He's saying, tell him to sign a job engagement letter. And then we will talk to him. So I told him, this is what I've been told. He said, no, I'm asking you personally, as Richard Rekhy, what would you do for me? And I gave him the advice, what I told him. It worked because I gave it to him on a personal level, of course. And later on, when we were doing the audit and there was a cost overrun, and the audit partner went to him and told him that we need a cost overrun. He's saying, I'm not giving a cost overrun, but I'm going to pay you for the advice Richard gave me at that time. So I'll give you a cost overrun, but I'm actually paying a debt which I owe him. And so people remember when you do something. So you build a relationship, and people don't forget it. So I think we should move away from being transactional, and we should learn how to build strong, solid relationships. Put yourself in the position of the client, have empathy, and I think you can conquer the client. And I think that was one of my best and greatest strengths, which I had, which I learned in Ratan Mama, which I amplified in Arthur Andersen, and then later on in Ernst Young and KPMG, of course.
Wonderful, Richard. I think there are two things that come up from what you said. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was client delight. You, of course, mentioned this particular incident. And even in our introductory call, I could see that, client delight, client relationship management is something you hold very close to heart, right? So, is there any, and all of us do realize that it is important and it is the lifeline of any business. But I guess a lot of us still struggle as to how to keep it simple, how to keep it effective. And probably the biggest challenge is how to keep it replicatable so that it's something that happens on its own, right? So what would your take on this be? How do I ensure that it is simple, it's effective and replicatable?
Yeah. Simple and effective. Yes, I agree with you. And how can you practically implement it and repeat it from time to time? Right. So I will give you with 2 or 3 examples.
Sure.
Because that's the best way to explain it. I'm giving you the examples. I'm sorry, I'm going back to Arthur Andersen because that was one period where I transformed from a local firm to a multinational firm, and so I had lots of kid-like experiences, because you suddenly experience a different world working with these large organizations and the delight going abroad and all those kind of things. So Uh, So at Andersen, we got an audit of a client from another big five at that time. It was now it is big four. It was big five, and I went and met the CFO. It was a company in Kolkata with a global kind of thing, and when I went to meet him, he was cribbing about that previous firm, of the quality of work and what high fees they charge. And when I saw the fees, I said, God, if he hears our fees, this guy's going to have a heart attack, because our fees were 6 times the fees what that other firm was charging. So he came to Bombay to meet me. Those days I used to work in Bombay. And he
Mhm.
came to Bombay to meet me and he said, okay, we discuss everything, very happy. Now, what about the fees? And I told him, and he got very angry. He said, there is no way I'm going to pay these fees. So I called up my boss, our lead partner in US, and I told him that he's refusing to pay the fees. He said, don't worry, it's a globally agreed fee, so we'll get it from the system. So you don't get too disturbed with it. You go ahead and do the work. So we did the audit. We performed whatever the audit was, and I remember I went to Calcutta because there were a lot of issues on that audit. We went there. I spent a lot of few days in Calcutta actually with him and the team. And at the end of it, just 2 days before we finished the accounts and everything was done, he asked me, "So everything is done, but the audit fees have not been put in." So I said, "Yeah, I gave you a number, you refused. So you put whatever number you want." He said, "What is the number you gave me?" So I told him, and he
Mhm.
said, "Put that number."
Oh.
He said, "I have never ever experienced an audit of this value and this quality." He's saying, "You tore us to pieces, you gave us solutions." In fact, he escalated it so much that it went up to the regional office. He flew me down to Singapore to meet his bosses, regional bosses there, to go and explain about the company and what we have done and what we are suggesting. And it was so. So I was saying that here we created this delight for the customer, and we created a delight for the client, and we made him happy. There were a few other incidents, many other incidents, where I remember I was doing a due diligence for one of the private equities,
Mhm.
and after we finished the work, he had appointed another accounting firm to do his next diligence, not us,
Mhm.
because they
Mhm.
found us expensive, so they never used to come to us. So he called up the partner of the other firm and said, "I have to give it back to Arthur Andersen. I can't give you, because what I've experienced from them, I don't get from anybody else." So our ability was always to go and give the client more than he wanted. So our whole thing was, how do you delight the client? How do you actually give him more than he expects? And we used to work very hard to actually get this across the line. And I remember we won a large Indian pharmaceutical company. They used to wait for us at the audit committee to come and do our presentation, because they were going to see something new, and they were waiting for that. And they, all the independent board members, the executive board, would be very happy to see that. So it was through sheer work that we got it, whether it was, dealing with very difficult problems of clients, and
Mhm.
also being solution oriented.
Mhm.
I'll give you one more incident.
Sure.
Was this lady, a CFO of an ad company again, and it was the first audit I was doing for her. Arthur Andersen was doing the audit for a number of years, and she came and told me that, I don't know why. She said, "Can you come out for lunch with me?" So I went for lunch with her. She said, "I do not know why, but I can trust you. I have a major issue. I have hidden profits for the last 2, 3 years. I don't know what to do now. Can you solve this problem for me?" So the point is that you would work to getting solutions to clients, because everybody has problems. So how do you actually find solutions for them and give it to them in a way which is legally right and within the law? And that's what aim was always, to work on that, provide solutions which were out of the box, innovative. And in fact, we used to, in our evaluation as partners in Andersen, the biggest score was given that how many innovative out-of-box ideas you gave in
Mhm.
that year, and that was it had a very high weightage in a
Okay.
partner evaluation for the year. So we were always said we have to come with 3 new ideas, we have to come with 3 new opportunities or whatever. So it was always there. It was ingrained in us. And so clients, I've always looked at being a client service partner, and having ensuring that the firm gets good fees. I'll tell you, Shriram, I have never had a problem of ever recovery from any client. In fact, I remember clients used to come to me and tell me that when I should reach office, can you give me your bill number? I said, why do you want my bill? I've just reached the office. Why do you want the bill? I've just finished the audit. No, I want to pay your fees. Imagine a client calling up and telling you, but I said, why do you want to pay the fees in such a hurry? He said, no, I've never been so delighted in my life and I want to pay off these fees. I'm a happy customer. So always motivate. You can't do it on your own. Sure. It is the team that does it. How do you motivate your team to perform at their best? And that is something I learned early at Ratan Mama and Company. How do you motivate your team to perform at the best? Because you are at the back, you just guide them. They are the frontline soldiers who go and do a lot of the work. Of course, when we are younger, we were doing a lot of the work ourselves. But I was one of those leaders who would work with my team. I would not go home. So if the team was working at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was there with them. Many times they told me, go home. Why don't you go home? Tomorrow morning you come. I said, no, I'm here. In case there's a problem, I'm here with you. So I think the presence itself, the team used to feel very happy. Now they tell me I've forgotten those incidents, but some of those people meet me and they said, because we worked so hard, one day you bought us some tickets and you forced us to go for the movie. Your secretary gave us those tickets and said, you go and see this movie, just need to unwind. So these few things I used to personally do. Like in one case, this guy was working so hard, I got him a holiday book for him and his wife. And I told him, you're taking these 4 days off and you just go off to this place. And I picked up the cost. But the point was that how do you actually keep your team motivated and, completely charged up? And they're giving so much to you. Sure. And it's about the team, because it's not about you. It's not you who do it. It's the team which does it. It's always a team effort. And when you give the credit to the team, I think that's where a leader actually scores out. I was fortunate to work with really outstanding professionals right through. And I was very lucky and fortunate to have worked with all of them.
Wonderful. That was very, very insightful, Richard. I mean, the ability to build trust with the customer, having a solution focus, being able to, be there for the team, bring out that human touch, because at the end of the day, people are people. And there is so much that each one contributes. I think those are, again, they seem very simple, but and easily doable. But it's. I mean, when the chips are down, it's really difficult to continue to stick to them and keep doing them. I think these are very, very powerful points. Thank you for sharing those.
Shriram, once again, I'm sorry, I may have broken your chain of thoughts, but I think I just want to mention one word, a few words here.
Sure.
Trusted business advisor. We all hear about it. Trusted business advisor. I don't think many of us even understand the meaning of it. The trust comes, I will only say the trust comes when the client never negotiates fees with you. He tells you to quote the fee and he trusts you. He's also putting an onerous responsibility on you because you can't overcharge him. Because you also have to be then fair. Because in a relationship, it's fairness. It's win-win. If we all of us get it in our mind that we are going to work on a win-win philosophy, I think all of us will do. And I can tell you, if I fast forward this later to my KPMG stint, when I was leading the firm, and I called the entire Middle East leaders, all the 17 firm leaders to India. And I said, we need to work together, India and the Middle East. And I made one statement which they never forgot, which they still remind me about, is you said that it has to be win-win for all. And you don't care where the first dollar goes. And I think that's the way we built that trust between the different firms. So we were not there to say we're going to take all the money that comes out of it. So once you build that trust, then there will be errors. Let me tell you, there are going to be errors made. There are going to be mistakes made. there are going to be wrong behavior from the team. So that is, we live in a real world, right? But
Sure.
they know it's not intentional and we can correct it. These are errors and we can correct it. And I think that's where it comes from. The people having the ability to pick up the phone and tell you that this is wrong, please change it, and you agreeing to it and making the necessary changes.
Sure, sure, Richard. I think that I've taken notes. Never negotiate. The client will never negotiate fees with you. I think that's a very very powerful statement. The that was, of course, the first question that I wanted to ask you based on what you had replied previously. Second one was, I always, even during the discussion we had now, in even the prior discussion, you've always spoken very lovingly, and I dare say with a great deal of reverence about Mr. Mama. And you spoke about the kind of impact he has had on your life, and how he helped you shape up to become the professional that you are. So I think that underscores the importance of having a mentor in our life. And today, when it is relatively easier to find mentors, what I wanted to ask you was, how does one become a good mentee? I think there's some issue, ladies and gentlemen. I think Richard is trying to get in. While we wait for Richard, I would just want to, kind of keep going. I think there were a lot of valid points, very strong points that Richard made. He spoke about the focus that one needs to have for solutions, hard work, having an out of box thinking mindset. Innovation was another thing that he scored very strongly, and he spoke very strongly about. I really liked the fact that innovation was one of the parameters on which partners were ranked. And I think that is something that we can all take back, probably into our own lives as entrepreneurs or even as employees, just to see how innovative are we being, and that will help us make the difference, and that will help us actually go to the stage where we actually are solving problems for our teams, for our clients. I think that's a very very powerful mindset, if I dare say, that one needs to look at. And of course, he spoke about trust, and the examples that he illustrated were absolutely phenomenal. And here we are talking of big firms, big organizations, and if that's the kind of impact that one is able to have, I think it's a extremely phenomenal achievement. There's a lot of learnings in there, and I do hope that as the discussion progresses, and I'm sure Richard will join us soon, we would be able to hear more from him. But I think this is a wonderful this has been a wonderful 30-35 minutes, where there has been a lot that we've been able to get, and it underscores the simple principles of hard work, problem solving, and a methodical approach on how one needs to play out what one is doing. And I'm sure all these have helped Richard build the course of his own life. And I'm sure there are challenges that he would have faced. And I'm sure there were times when he would have felt doubtful about, whether he's taking the right step, whether he's doing the right thing. He spoke about some issues with challenges that existed with the team. So I'm sure we'll be able to, kind of uh, get back to listening to him again, and speak a bit about these issues also, and how he helped, or I'm sorry, how he overcame these challenges, and kind of built his own course, and is today able to direct direction for the others. And One thing that I wanted to talk about, and I'm just getting news that Richard will be joining us very soon, is his experience, the first experience that he had, the first job that he held. He, just before we cut off, I was speaking about Mr. Mama, who was his mentor over there. And there was some amazing stuff that he shared with me. And I thought it would be very, very important for us to listen into what he has to say. And I wanted to approach this entire dimension of mentor not from the standpoint of a mentor per se, because I'm sure today most of us know the need for a mentor, the importance of a mentor, the qualities of a mentor. And I'm sure most of us continue to mentor in some way or the other within our own sphere of influence. We do mentor people, but I think that entire relationship can blossom extremely well if we are able to figure out how does one become a good mentee. Because in any ecosystem, there is an opportunity to learn, there is an opportunity to imbibe, and there is an opportunity to succeed. And it goes beyond, at least I believe, that it goes beyond just reading the circumstances around you. It is of extreme importance that we are guided right. And that is where the role of a mentor comes into play. And as much as the role of a mentor is important, it is also extremely important how do we be a good mentee so that we get the best out of what the environment has to offer for us. That is something that I thought would be extremely relevant and important for us to learn, because there's some absolutely fascinating stuff that he had shared uh, when I spoke to him about this dimension of mentors and mentoring. And he's I guess Richard is back, so we should be able to see him very soon.
Yeah. Yes, sure. I'm here. Thank you. Sorry about that. My lights went off and it just took its time to
Not
come.
at all.
Sorry.
Not at all. Not at all, Richard. I was just kind of,
Yeah.
I took this opportunity to kind of recap what you had shared.
No.
Yeah, we can hear you, Richard. You're back
Yeah.
on screen.
Thank
We
you.
can see you. Yeah. So, Richard, coming back to where we left,
Yeah.
as I was saying, there was a lot of varied emotions that I could notice in your face and even in your voice when you spoke about Mr. Mama, and
Yeah.
how he helped you shape and craft your own story, as it were.
Yes.
So what I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of wanted you to share with the audience was, and this is something I was talking to them when you were off air, is about you have an ecosystem that helps you learn.
Sure.
You have people senior than you who are kind of doing this stuff. You observe, you learn, you notice what to do, probably what not to do, etc. And
Sure.
then there's that stage where you consciously go in for a mentor.
Yeah.
So, what are the qualities of a good mentee so that you can, I mean, as they keep saying, how can you be the proverbial sponge who's able to, fall into that water and kind of absorb everything? So, what would you say would be
So,
the characteristics of a good mentee? What did you do to, kind of get the best out of him?
so him being my mentor was, again, for me, life has been accidental. Everything in my life, like I said, just happened. I was lucky to be there when it happened. I was lucky. I was lucky that Mr. Mama came into my life, and he also, because being in the, though we were not a very large organization, still we were large enough not to get noticed, because I was a small fry there.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just starting my career. I was not even a qualified chartered accountant. I just given my exams, and I was what they call the semi-qualified paid assistants,
Mm-hmm.
and I still remember my first interaction with him. I was told to go and meet Mr. Mama wants to meet you, And so I walked, and people scared me because he was a terror. He was a terror. Okay. So I knocked very nervously on his door and walked in, and I told him, introduce myself. Oh, he said, come, sit down, sit down. And he said, you know why you are here? I said, no. He's saying you are here because somebody's complained about you. But I don't look at it as a complaint. I look at it as an initiative you have taken. And I want to compliment you for what you did. But you could have done it a little differently. You could have done it this way than what you did it. But nobody else has done what you have done. And I want to say thank you to you. So that was the starting of that conversation. The next 2 hours, he told me his life story. And I still remember the words that he told as I was walking out of that room, that you are all horses, the best horse will win the race. So that word stuck in my head. And that was my first meeting with him. And somehow he took a liking to me, and he has helped me right through my career. You know, I used to observe him. I used to watch him. I used to go for client meetings with him. I used to get fired by him. I used to get papers thrown at me. I took everything in its own stride because I said, this is an apprentice who's learning from a master. And when you have that attitude of humility and saying, here's a man, an accomplished person who's going to teach you, and you're there as a student, you will learn, open mind. And he taught me, I'll tell you, he taught me positive thinking. He taught me to be a solution oriented, how to give back to society, how not to be greedy, how to always look after people around you, how to be, I didn't know the word servant leadership, but he taught you something what you call the servant leadership. And that was something that I truly learned at that time from him. And it was a great learning which came from Mr. Mama. And also, the one thing which I will never forget, he said, we are all people, we are where we are because somebody has made a sacrifice for us. Have you ever gone back and thanked those people who have actually influenced your life, who have actually made the sacrifice to make you who you are? Have you gone to society? The reason why you tell us to give back to society, you are here because somebody else didn't make it where you made it. And what are you doing to give back to society to make sure that you can get many more people into that room who you could help through your whatever means that you have reached? And I still remember that one day when he walks into office, he calls all of us. We were 8 or 9 partners. And he said, I made sufficient money in my life. I've got 2 houses. 2 houses for him was sufficient money. But he said, I made sufficient money in my life. And I think you guys need to make money. From today, I'm taking no profits from the firm. You all share it between yourselves. And that year, my comp went up 6 times to what it was, to what I was earning in the firm. So much so that when I went to Arthur Andersen for a job after Ratan Mama's stint, they couldn't afford to pay me this comp I was getting in Ratan. Small firm. Arthur Andersen, the number 1 firm. So I just want to share that. So he actually gave us that opportunity to thrive, to prosper, to succeed, and to do good work. I still remember this conversation with him 15 days before he died. He was going to London for treatment. And I called him to wish him all the best. And he told me, he said, Richard, I want you never to leave this firm ever because of few reasons. And he gave the reasons. He's saying, what about that office boy? What about that receptionist? What about the typist? He used to have typists in those days, by the way.
Sure.
So what about the steno? What about all these people? You guys will get jobs, or what about those people? Please stay together, keep this firm together, and make sure that those guys continue to be employed, because I may never come back. And here's a man dying. Of course, he didn't know he was 15 days or 20 days away from his last day, but how he was thinking of the lowest rung in that firm. And that's what, the impact that he had on me. I remember when I became the coup of KPMG, that was in 2006, I wrote to Mrs. Mama. And I said, I wanted to thank Mr. Mama for what I am today. And I wrote a mail to her. She was so happy getting that mail. I said, there's nobody else I can thank but you, because you were his wife. and she was overwhelmed with that letter that you wrote it. But he really meant a lot to me because I believe he did a lot. I learned a lot from him. I learned marketing from him. I learned other things from him. Uh, I learned other things from him, etc. And he was outstanding professional. I can tell you one thing. I've been through Arthur Andersen, KPMG, and Ernst Young for a brief period of 20 months. But I can tell you, I've never met a professional of this caliber ever. I mean, he was a professional. I've never met such a complete professional in my life. And who was, I would say, the king of marketing. He could sell a non-brand, and that's what I learned from him, to sell a non-brand. So when I came into Arthur Andersen, it was a cakewalk. It was a cakewalk, and I'm not trying to be arrogant here, but it was absolute cakewalk. You had this huge brand behind you,
Sure.
and you want to sell it. So it was very easy. And because you knew the mechanics of how to do a difficult sale. Because you never lost those basic things that you learned: humility, going in front of the client, and client service, quality. Even though we were a small firm, he always taught us about quality, about dressing well, always being in a suit, always wearing a tie. Those were like no mandatory for him, and so many ways he was actually a mentor. Never teaches you anything.
Right.
I like the word you use, sponge. I think you've got to be that sponge and absorb what you see. But he gives you those small nudges which become game changers. Which become game changers. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah. Is that my phone or whose?
yes, I guess that's it. Yeah, not mine, Richard. I guess.
I
But
don't
that's fine.
care in the system.
Yeah, that's not my phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, honestly, I have no clue whose phone it was, but kind of got sorted out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So moving on, Richard. I mean, now we spent quite a bit of time talking about the stuff that you learned, the impact of family, the impact of a mentor, etc., which helped you kind of scale up, move up, evolve as an individual, etc. So there's another part to it, I'm sure. You know, the setbacks, the challenges, the failures. I mean, if I may say so, no path is easy, and I'm sure you've had your fair share of them. So, as one starts to write, one story, carves or wants to carve out something for oneself, how does one look at these kind of setbacks, because they're going to come back to you again and again, despite what we think of life being very linear. It's not going to be that way. It's going to be all squiggles in all directions. How does one keep coming back again and again, and how did you do that? Because I'm sure with the kind of workplaces that you were in, extreme pressure, extreme competition, so it would have brought its own set of challenges. The sacrifices that the family had to make, you had to make. How did you overcome all that? That's something
So
that we have to talk about.
if you ask me, I had more than my fair share of failures. In fact, if I count my successes, I think my failures are much more than my successes. But each of them made me a better person and a better professional.
Hmm.
I would like to talk about one failure in particular,
Hmm.
which in many ways was earth shattering for me. It completely destroyed what I stood for.
Hmm.
It was, in fact, I'll talk of two
Sure.
because one didn't have such a. So the first one was when I was at Arthur Andersen. I used to be a partner in Ratan Mama. I had the big opportunity of setting up the Delhi office. Actually, I didn't talk about that. I learned entrepreneurship there. How
Hmm.
you build a practice from zero with no money, no clients, no people, and you go on the streets trying to win companies without a brand. And Ratan S Mama in Delhi, they were laughing at the name. They said, "What is this Mama Chacha? You first change the name of your firm, then come and talk to us." the clients were very rude, very arrogant to me. But I took it in its stride, and I never once, did anything which was different. But that taught me how to become an entrepreneur. How to in those days we didn't know startups, but I think it was a startup, and one built it because I know there were months, 6 to 9 months, when I never took 1 rupee from the firm. In fact, I put money to do certain expenses because there was no money. I had to go to my clients and beg them, kind of, give me my fees in advance. I need to pay my rent. I need to pay my employees' salaries. And they were doing it. They were paying my fees. Can you believe a client paying a small firm of fees in advance? And these were like semi-government companies. Some of them were private companies. I'm sorry, I just digressed. Yeah, so I think so that was the one part of it. But my biggest failure came in Arthur Andersen. I was a partner. I came and joined them, Arthur Andersen senior manager, because they wouldn't take you as a partner. And they said, you're 1 year away from partnership, kind of. So next year we'll make you partner. I didn't understand what they meant by next year. And so when the time came, I was not made partner, and the earth under me shifted. Because I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life. I was earning more money. I had a better title. Why did I leave all that and come here, if this was what I was to face? And at that time, a competing firm actually approached me, and they were paying me 3 times the salary I was getting at Arthur Andersen, and they were making me a partner. And the chairman of that competing firm was in direct discussions with me. But in my mind, I said, no, I have to manage. Let me give it the best shot. So the first 15 days of anger, of all that frustration which came out, spoke to everybody and said this is the most lousy firm and everything else. You know how it all comes out from us individuals. I decided to put my head down and work. And I worked and worked and worked. I did not know anything other than work, Sriram. I worked like a dog, I would say. I did things which I never thought I could do. You know what failure teaches you? It makes you dig into the reservoirs of your talent, which you never knew existed. And you come out a completely different person. Suddenly those reservoirs of talent get awakened. It's like some body muscles not being used when you're doing some exercises, right? And suddenly you realize, oh, I can do this. Oh, wow, I never knew I could do this, And they made me a partner. They made me a partner, but the next year, I got a letter from them where they gave me 5 times the promotion. So somebody who made it partner 5 years back, I was now reinstated at that, and that was a crowning glory for me. That letter I still preserve with myself. They said, "We hope we have reposed the faith in you," and so I've never chased money, Shera, never. And I can tell people who are listening on this, who are at whichever point of career you are, do not chase money. Money chases successful people. Money chases your hard work. You may not get the money where you worked, Sriram. You may not get the money where at the time when you think you should get it. But when it comes in a very, very different way. Because I remember when I got this promotion, my boss asked me, so what do you think you're going to get now? So I said, listen, I'm not interested in money. He's saying, take a guess. So I gave a guess. He's saying it is much, much more than that you're getting. And, not that my heart leapt, it didn't mean much to me, honestly, but the appreciation was that letter was more valuable than what I got actually in financial terms from them. And I always valued that. And also the biggest thing was that in Andersen, we used to have what we used to call the national partners and then worldwide partners. I was one of the few people who made it in 1 year as a worldwide partner, national partner. So those were things which were also, you felt good about it, okay, that you made it there. So that was my first failure. The second failure was a client situation. We won our biggest client. This was in KPMG, our biggest client, a US client, and it was giving us our biggest fees in terms of consulting fees. And it was a 5-year contract. And because of that, we had to set up a special office and everything else for it because it had to be done under certain security and control environment. So I then and then within 6 months of getting that contract, the contract was cancelled.
Mhm.
The contract was cancelled, and my team was so distraught. They told me, "Can you go and tell the client we want to enforce the contract?" Enforcement of the contract was 2 years fees. That we would get 2 years fees if the contract was broken before its time.
Mhm.
Either side would have to, compensate the other party. And uh, so I went to meet the client. It was at you have lived in Bangalore, so you know. I went to the Oberoi at the bar. This client was sitting there. I went completely. My team had so much psyched me of going and saying, "Bloody throw the paper in his face and get the money for us." And I don't know what happened to me. While I was walking down that corridor, as you know, that Oberoi, that corridor to that bar,
Sure.
something changed in my mind. And I said, I'm not going to enforce the contract. I sat with him, we exchanged pleasantries, and I told him I'm not enforcing the contract. You know what his words to me were? He said, "You got
Mhm.
a client for life." He said, "You
Wow.
got a client for life." I said, "The only one thing which I want from you is that if ever we get an opportunity, you're going to give us work." And let me tell you, the 8, 9 years that I was there post that in KPMG, every year we got substantial amount of work in millions of dollars from this client. Every year. And so that one short-term event would have killed this client forever. So I'm just saying when we are taking decisions, we need to think. I'm not saying that okay, it was some great, well thought out. All my decisions. I'm a gut player. I play from the gut. Let me tell you. I don't. So all my decisions are taken. Whatever my gut tells me, when I go with my gut, I never go wrong. The time when I try to justify myself against my gut, I've always gone wrong. And I've always had a big issue around that. So so that's these are the two things which I thought. But I've had many failures, many bad days in office, many times when you felt you should throw up the job. I'll tell you, 6 months before becoming the CEO of KPMG, I thought of quitting the firm because I was in a very low of my life. And my super boss, who was sitting in, who was the global vice chairman of the international firm, he
Mhm.
told me if I was you, I would not quit because he knew what was coming down the line. He knew there was a CEO election coming, and he knew I would stand for it. Uh, but I didn't know about it. But he told me I would not quit, and you just stay on, have patience. And luckily I stayed on, and 6 months later I was the CEO of KPMG. I mean, I'm just saying where to where your life could have been. You would have left 6 months back, would never have become a big force. And 6 months
Sure.
later, you have an election and you win that election and you become the CEO of the firm.
Right. That's extremely fascinating, Richard. I think the fact that you stood by what you felt was right, and you trusted your gut. And I think another thing when you narrated that incident at Oberoi with a particular client was you're still trying to see how that relationship could be continued,
Yeah,
despite a transactional setback, if
yeah,
one could call it.
yeah,
Now, when you step
yeah.
back and see it was just transactional,
Yes, yeah.
there probably was a context to why that contract got rescinded
Yeah,
and
yeah.
why.
I'm not going through that. There is a whole context. There was a whole context.
Right,
It had nothing to do with this guy. This guy had nothing to do
right,
with it. This particular guy
right.
was a country head, had nothing to do with it. In fact, he was sympathetic towards me.
Sure.
He was
Sure.
sympathetic, but he was not the decision maker. The decision was taken in the US.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So I'm sure. I think that's when you realize that there are so many paradigms that are at play, and one needs to kind of take a holistic view and see
yes,
what is best to
absolutely.
salvage. Yeah, to salvage the
Execution.
relationship, etc. I think that's very fascinating, Richard. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And as when one looks at all these experiences that you have had, uh, all the challenges that you have faced, etc. Today, when and today you are mentoring a lot of young entrepreneurs. Uh, How is that playing out? Do you see, when you look back at your days of entrepreneurship, when you set up the office in Delhi, when you were at Mama and Co, how do you see the young entrepreneurs of today versus what you did a long time back?
Yeah.
And do you see any change in the mindset, the perspectives, the value systems? What would you want to underline to them and probably the other young entrepreneurs, the budding entrepreneurs who are listening in?
Yeah, so I think if you, they are far more intelligent than what I was at their age. They are far more knowledgeable. They are. I never had the opportunity of listening to somebody's experience like some of them are having to listen to. You got 64 talks, and if they have listened to some of those talks, they would have learned a lot from it. So I never had the opportunity. Honestly, I didn't get that opportunity. So secondly, I was not so evolved. I was not so sharp. I think the youngsters today are way ahead in terms of thinking, intellect, their ability to fathom out things. Their ability to understand white space is amazing. You know what fascinated me? I took all my retirement money and put it into startups. Whatever I
Mhm.
got out of KPMG, I said, this is a startup because I wanted to work with youngsters. Number one, selfish reason to work with youngsters. And number two, I wanted to have some fun in the
Mhm.
sense, experience what this new world is, this new world of finding solutions for in a kind of place. And I think the one few advices that I will give people is I think you need to have patience. There
Mhm.
will be days when things are going to be really bad, and
Mhm.
you will get up and say that now I must throw in the towel. Don't throw it in because you may be at that tipping point where life is going to change for you. So if you, first of all, you must have a purpose. You must have why you are there. Why are you doing this? And as long as that purpose is there, I would say keep on going for it because you will succeed. Don't detract from the vision which you have set yourself. Your path may slightly change here and there because obviously nothing is static in this world. But do not ever, do that. So that's one advice. Secondly, I think we need to be financially prudent. A lot of these startups get a lot of money. Don't waste that money. Learn to
Sure.
be prudent with that money. Learn how to save that money, how to use it for good purpose. That way you build an asset or you invest it and then you further grow with it. And a third thing I would say, they do have a lot of it, so I really don't want to talk about it. I mean, make sure that your always integrity is never ever compromised. The one thing that I learned in life, it's never worth it ever compromising on your integrity. And when I talk of it, it doesn't mean only when people are looking, even when they are not looking, do the right thing. Because
Mhm.
life is about doing the right thing financially by your people, by your clients. And I always keep saying, never sell anything that you would not buy. Never sell anything that you would not
Not
personally
bad.
buy. So don't ever get into that situation where you're just trying to make a profit and you're trying to make a short term gain. Rather, let the loss come in, but you will get the money. Money will come to you finally. And I think that is the kind of patience that I'm requesting that they need to have. But they're a really smart bunch of people. They know what it is. They need and hard work. There is nothing. There is no substitute for hard work. So just because you become a little successful, don't take yourself 100 feet off the ground. So people may be talking a lot about you. So I
Mhm.
always keep saying reputation is what people think you are, character is who you are. Make sure your character is intact and you are actually, living that character of yours to the truest form and just not thinking what people think you are. Because that's the outside facade they are seeing. The outside facade, the image that you've built of yourself. So don't waste too much time in image building. Use
Mhm.
that same amount of energy in building the business, building your people, because remember, so many people have risked their life on you. Have
Sure.
also, punted. So how are you looking after them? So whenever one takes a decision, one needs to take a decision with his team. If you got a team, make sure that your team is well looked after first. Then think about yourself. If you are the main entrepreneur, if you are the person. But I think, like I said, they are far smarter, and one learns a lot from them.
Sure.
They're a
Sure.
good bunch of.
Richard. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of insights there that you shared, which will be useful for the the young budding entrepreneurs. and from what I see and read and hear, they're getting younger by the day. So, so I'm sure there are a lot of insights, and even for folks who are there as part of the grind, I think the the dimensions of purpose, vision, patience, integrity, fiscal prudence. I
Yeah.
think these are all extremely important. Thanks for sharing that. And while you were talking about the young entrepreneurs, etc., you used the phrase the young world, the new world.
Yeah.
Okay, so something just came to my mind, when you spoke of the new world. In a way, what we faced in the last 8 months was a new world only, right? So, how did this entire pandemic situation play out for you as an individual, as an entrepreneur? How did this play out for you? When you step back, things seem to be getting slightly better now. When you step back, how do you see that 8 9 months play out for you?
So I lost some weight. So Shiram, I walk 12 to 15 kilometers every day, and
Hmm.
not a stroll. It's a brisk walk every morning. I go to Kaban Park, and
Okay.
every morning. So there was no traveling. So every day you go. I have been more health conscious. All my parameters seem to be coming back to normal. Health parameters. I'm much happier as an individual. I've become much more minimalist in my needs. I can now live with the jeans and t-shirt. So today I'm wearing a jacket because I'm coming on your talk show. Otherwise, I'm in jeans and t-shirt. And I don't know when's the last time I wore a suit in the last 9 10 months. Maybe when I went to Dubai last month. Otherwise, I've never been wearing any suit. And I've realized that life is very simple. Basically, I'm a simple person, but I learned more simplicity in this period. Let me tell you, I learned. I think all of us. I'm talking of myself, and I'm sure a lot of us will have that same feeling that we've emerged as better humans. We have
Hmm.
more sympathy towards our fellow people, people who work with us, people who depend upon us, the outside society who we helped. A lot of us would have helped a lot of these migrant workers, helped a lot of these other people who were in dire need of money, food. So I did my small bit, whatever I can, because I have, from 92 onwards, I've been giving back to society, and I do my small bit here and there, and like with Mr. Mama, take a certain percentage, give it back, and that's the way I lead my life. And sometimes I don't even look at that percentage. If it is a need, I just do it. I said, I'm only a medium. God has created you as a medium. You are not the giver. The giver is somewhere else. You are just the person through whom it's going. And once we understand that, I think it's much easier. And then the pandemic also, I would say, from work point of view, doing a lot of these meetings online have been fantastic. You've been able to do. I've done so many meetings with Dubai. I've been doing whole day board meetings and other meetings, and at the drop of a hat with different parts of the world. It has been amazing, actually, this experience. And all this was existing, but it was never used by me. At least I didn't know that you could. It was so powerful, and
Sure.
uh, and I think what has happened for all of us, we have broken boundaries.
Sure.
So today you can get an international speaker coming and speaking to an audience in India with no qualms. He doesn't need to travel. He or she doesn't need to travel. Or you could be part of an international forum and you could be there listening to the best guy, whatever. Or people listening to great Indian speakers. So I think for me, the pandemic was a very positive vaccination which was needed for us as human beings to learn that we had gone overboard in the way we lived our lives, and we needed a break, and we needed to come back to reality. I think it's brought us back to reality. It's also taught us how to be more agile, how to be more accepting of new things, how to accept the way new work is going to made us more flexible and made us much more, I would say, relevant in today's world. You need to be relevant, See, for me, I read a lot. This period, I never watched. You'll be shocked. and you think I'm bullshitting you, but I've been just downloading those Netflix movies, but I never watched them. Because I was so engrossed in updating myself and my own skills, and learning a lot on the new technologies that are coming, on what is happening. I got so engrossed into a lot of these things that I never felt the need of watching a movie. The only time I saw a movie now is when I went to Delhi on the plane. I put on my Netflix and watched a movie. I said, okay. Then I updated all of them had already expired, so I updated them and watched them on the plane. Yeah.
Nice, Richard. I think that's a very refreshing take on the pandemic and how it played out. I think two things resonate for me from what you said.
Sure.
One is it helped us become far more relevant, and there was always this talk of reskilling, learning, unlearning, etc. And a lot of stuff written about it, whether it is books or whether it is speakers talking about it, or content on social media. But I think this really tested us.
Yes.
To that extent, yes, as you rightly said, uh, it has actually made us agile,
Yeah.
right? And I do hope we take these lessons and
Yes.
we move ahead and kind of sustain the learnings and make this entire place a better place to live in for all. I think
I,
that's how I
Sriram,
would.
I'll give you a small example. I'll just give you a small
Sure,
example. When SARS came and hit the world, at
sure.
that time, Singapore universities were told to go online because you couldn't physically meet and do it. And then what the country had a diktat that for at least 2 weeks in a year they will do online classes. So literally they got the learning from SARS and they just pivoted. They had nothing to do because it was all ready. The platform was ready. So I like what you said actually. It's a fantastic, and I think it should be to all business leaders. Take these learnings, document them, and follow them so that your business continuity will be far better dealt with if another pandemic kind of situation ever comes, another crisis of a similar nature or even less intense nature comes and hits you. I think we need to take the learnings and not forget about it. Because if you can do meetings like this, why do you need to do the physical format meeting? You can save a lot of stress, you can save a lot of money, you can save a lot of, and you can have a much wider reach of audience. I mean, just imagine getting audiences from all over the world listening to a talk, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And number one, and the number of people who can actually take advantage of it is much more than what you do in a physical format. You could have done in a physical format.
Absolutely, Richard. So, Richard, I mean, as we kind of draw close to the our scheduled time, there's just two more questions I
So,
would kind of want to ask you. Uh, we've spoken so much about your work and your experiences, etc., etc. So let's kind of shift gears here and just give us a glimpse into uh, the Mr. Richard, human dimension of Mr. Richard. How do you spend your day? What do you do? What are your hobbies? Maybe a bit about your family.
yeah.
What engages you?
Yeah. So number one, I'm a very avid reader, or
Mhm.
used to be an avid reader. I literally pick up a book and has to, read a lot. A lot of what I learn is from reading. What I've learned over the books that actually really impressed me were autobiographies by some great people who I admire and follow, and I've read and picked up from them and underlined them and take it and it's like my takeaway do's, and then I try to follow it, okay, and live their dream through. So I'm a mishmash of a number of leaders who I did. So that was one part of it. Secondly, I love music. So
Mhm.
both English and Hindi, older songs with good meaning, good tunes, and in fact, that was my biggest stress buster. Everybody needs a stress buster in life. Music was my biggest stress buster. Music and pets. Two things. I have three dogs currently. One is a dog who we took as a puppy. The two are adopted, who were like thrown in the streets. We brought them home, looked after them, and so three dogs here and two dogs in my other house. So five dogs in total. And the dogs are really, the pets are your stress buster. I mean, they are it just, I mean, it takes you to a different this thing. So music has been a big stress buster. I remember in Bombay, when I used to leave my office, I used to drive my car home. I used to put on music, and then I shifted gears from office to home. So music has been. I've always been into physical activity and physical sports. I used to play cricket. I was a very good swimmer. In fact, I was in my school team. Played table tennis quite a lot, and cricket also. I played in my. I was not in the final 11, but I was in the 12, 14 players who were chosen. And But swimming, I was a good swimmer. I swam for my club in Calcutta also. So I was a good swimmer, and we used to practice daily. So I love swimming. Today, if you ask me to swim, I don't know whether I can swim, because I don't think I have the energy or the ability to have that kind of thing. But I love water, and I love treks. And you
Okay.
won't believe it. Just before the pandemic, I did a big trek. If people have gone and done it, to Taro's Nest in Bhutan. I walked from the ground up to the this thing, Buddhist temple, the tiger's nest, as they call it out there. It's a very difficult trek. It takes about 3.5, 4 hours to reach there, and it also tested not only my physical endurance, but it tested my fear of heights, because you walk down steps and you walk up 600-900 steps with hardly any railing, and it is really scary for me, a person who's feared of heights. But I got over two fears. One, I tested my physical endurance, because I walked up and walked down, spent about 10 minutes in the temple, just thanking God there, and then walked back on that path. Walking back is as difficult, because the steep, your legs can
Yeah.
really get.
Yeah.
In fact, the people at the hotel were like shocked. They said, "Did you actually go up and come down?" I said, so they thought I was bullshitting them. So, but I love treks. I love mountains and water. These are the two things which actually take me to a very, very different level. It transports me into a different world, and I love that world which I see there. It's calm, it's beautiful, stress free, and because you need stress busters. Unfortunately, I don't drink. I'm a social drinker. I don't smoke. So you need something in which you need to let out your frustration, your energy, and this music and my pets and long walks are the ones which actually get me going there. And family, I got a daughter. She's a chartered accountant, and
Oh,
yeah,
now why is that not a surprise?
no, I didn't want her. I didn't want her. So I told her to do something else, but then she saw her nephews doing it, cousins doing it, and my nephews, that is. And she said, I want to do my CA. And she went off to UK and all to do MBA and all. And then she came back and wanted to do a CA. So, yeah.
Nice, very nice, Richard.
Yeah.
I mean I mean, that's the proverbial basket of interest that you have: reading, music, pets, sports. And I'm sure these have also helped you, kind of shape up,
Yeah.
shape you into the person
Yeah.
that you are. And
Yeah.
yes, I completely agree with you. We all need stress busters. So, Richard, I think we now kind of come to the close of our session. So, just one thing popped up in my mind. Uh, do you ever think back and have you ever thought back and said, maybe I should have gone to Merchant Navy? Did that thought ever come back again?
Never.
Never ever.
You see, honestly, like I've had really bad days, Sriram. Really bad days when you want to just go 6 feet under the ground, and those times. And but I said, if I got the good of life, I think I like the way somewhere in between you said that life is up and down, the waves. You go up and then you come down, and again you go up. According to me, failure is not about falling. Failure is about falling and staying down. That is failure. And so I don't think, while I call them failures, I don't think I failed. I fell. But I got up, motivated myself, and said, no, I'm better than that. That's not me. And that's what actually got me. It's the self pride and the self esteem I have in myself that made me do things. You asked me now, what made you get up? I didn't answer that, but I'm answering it now. That's what actually motivated me to actually give off the best, because I'm a very proud individual. I'm proud of what my parents have done for me and made me who I am, what Mr. Mama molded me into. I don't want to disappoint any of them in any which way that this guy is not good enough. And that's what actually keeps, I got a very high bar for myself. My personal bar is very high. Some people don't like it because when you lead an organization, you try to take the organization's bar also there. And everybody is not aligned to that. Leaders need to inspire, I agree. And I tried my level best to inspire, but everybody doesn't get inspired. So you need to work with different people at different levels. Yeah.
Nice, nice, Richard. So Richard, as we sign off, I mean, if there is one thing that you would want to, kind of uh, leave our audience with, what would that be?
So that's a difficult one. I would like to leave a lot of things with the audience, but if it's one, then I would choose one which is my favorite topic, which is higher purpose. We all have purpose in life. Otherwise, we won't be here, right? I mean, we all have got a purpose why we do something, why we don't do something. But I think higher purpose is something very different. The way I try to define higher purpose is becoming the best version of yourself on one side and being able to move away from the transactional part of it and doing something that will sustain you in the long term. And I look at it like this: your salary is your current account, your higher purpose is your capital account. And once you're able to understand the differentiation, and once you're able to answer the why of your life, why I'm doing something, I'm sure you'd have fallen, you'd have got your higher purpose. My higher purpose in life was always firm before self, and I lived it. I lived it. There were many times I gave up titles because I feel titles are temporary, titles are given, but respect is earned. And that's what I work for. Give me the respect because I know one day these titles are going to be stripped away from you. How are people going to look at you? It's that respect which you have earned in that period which will keep you going. I'm very grateful to the people how they have treated you. So I would say higher purpose was something that I was involved in KPMG globally with the team which we put it together. It's the glue that binds people to an organization. It's the glue that binds clients to the organization. It is that one thing which people want to work with this organization, whether it's clients, whether it's people, whether it is vendors, whoever it is, because that they feel the differentiator. And I will just share with you after we launched the higher purpose, possibly the best higher purpose launch that ever happened. And just to share with you, one of the big B schools, I don't want to mention it because they may not like it. It's the top B school in the world who have approached me and they want to talk about this topic, only on this topic with me. I don't know what they want to do with it, but they want to have a detailed conversation with me, a professor who's this thing. So I think this is very, very close to me. Number of big Indian clients have come and said, can you put higher purpose into our organization the way you did in KPMG? I only asked them one question: is the CEO committed to it? They said, we don't know. I said, then I'm not the right person. Because if the CEO is not committed to that higher purpose, it can never be implemented. So it is the soul of the firm, I would say. If you want to define it, it is the soul of you, it is the soul of the organization. And if we get it right, I think we would have got it. And I would like to sign off by saying one statement I read somewhere, and this was the All Black, the coach, when he said, plant trees that you will never be a good ancestor and plant trees that you'll never see. And I think that's what we should all be doing, planting trees that we will never see, because building future leaders, building future talent, I think that's what we're all here for.
Wonderful, wonderful, Richard. That indeed was, kind of leaving this at a very, very high note. Uh, Honestly speaking, I never realized that we are almost 90 minutes into the conversation. Absolutely fascinating, absolutely brilliant insights. Thank you so much for taking time out again
Thank you.
and sharing these thoughts with us. Audience, as promised, yes, a lot of notes here, a lot of notes that I've taken, right? And I'm sure you too have done that. With that, we come to the end of this show. Thank you so much for joining in. We obviously have more shows lined up, and we thank you for all the support that you have shown us uh, by logging into these shows regularly. I'm sure you're finding them useful. It's a lot of work and effort that goes into bringing in speakers of wonderful caliber, And we will continue on this journey. We will continue on this path. And do connect with us on social media. We are on LinkedIn, we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram. In case you want to connect with us in person, do mail us at reach@tlrnow.com. That's REACH, reach@tlrnow.com. Thanks again for taking time out on a Saturday evening to listen into this. And I'm sure this has been a brilliant investment for all of us listening to Richard for about 90 minutes. Thank you so much. All the very best to each one of you in your professional and personal endeavors. Stay safe, stay calm, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.